Okay, I'm Mike Adams, and this is the bowl that I make for the Beads of Courage for the children in the hospital. It's made out of staves, and I've been making it with a plywood bottom and a glued up top. So what I want to do is start off by showing you how to make the staves and how to glue it up. So I'm going to move down to the table here. Okay, I have to make 21 staves, and they need about an 8.5 or 8.4 degree angle on each side. And when I'm setting up my table saw, I take 360 degrees and divide it by 21, and that gives me the angle, which is approximately 17 degrees that has to be taken away, and then I split that in half. So I come up with about 8.4. So on my table saw, I use this level, and I set it on my table, zero it out, and then I put it up on the blade where it doesn't touch the teeth part, and I can take the 8.4 and subtract that from 90 degrees, and then I can put this exactly where I want it. But you're going to be in the 1/10 of a degree in order to make these things fit properly. If you do it just by the crank on the table, you're probably not going to get close enough. And if you're worried about being accurate, here we are in modern day age with electronic stuff, and I'm worried about a 1/10 of a degree. You know, the pyramids were within 1/15 of a degree, so we're kind of crude compared to them. So I have all my pieces laid out in the sequence that I want them. I put a veneer between the similar woods just to highlight the break in there, and I've used Sawyer's, and you can get this at Woodcraft, different colors, so I try to change them up for each bowl. So in order to get the bowl to come together, what I have to do is I put tape down. I use a 2-inch tape because I need the stickiness of it, and I put it with the sticky side up. Use a little piece of tape to tape it down, just to hold it in place. Once that's in place, then I start placing them. Make that as square as you can get it. Now, I've been using 2 layers of the veneer to get it thick enough where you can see it better. So when I get to put them in, I actually put 3 pieces in. Set that down, put the next piece in up tight, and then I take the center piece out. And the reason for that is when you go to put your glue in here, you need space in between to allow the glue to drip down to the bottom, because you're going to want that glue to go down to the bottom. And if you only did it with 2, then they get too crammed up in here. So let me just place these in. Just for explanation, I'm just going to do it with 2 in there, because that's what it's going to wind up as. This has to be tight when it goes down. Otherwise it's going to cause us problems later on. Press them all down and make sure they're sticking to that tape, because you're going to need that to hold the outside edge together. On the other end, you need a little bit of extra sticky tape sticking up so you can glue it all together. So what you're going to do is you're going to put glue in each one of these things. I use the Type Bond, the slow stuff. And then after it's all glued, as well as one end, I go along with a toothpick and push the glue down to the bottom so it's at the bottom of the wedge. Because when you put it together, it will squeeze like this and go to the top. So you'll see as I pick it up, hopefully this all sticks together. It comes together, and just tape it. Then I have regular pipe clamps, and I put that around there and crank them tight all the way around. One on the bottom, one on top, and set that all up. Then I let that dry overnight, because you're going to have centrifugal force working against you, so I want to make sure it's good and dry and tight. Okay, this is what the piece looks like once it's all glued up. I've sanded this down on this end just to make sure I have a good solid base against my jaws. And what I've done is I've pre-turned this down, but basically you're going into rubber jaws, so it doesn't hold as good as your metal jaws. So you have to be careful when you do your cutting. You have to take slighter cuts. So I make sure it's good and tight. Okay, so this is our bowl cut away in half. So I'm going to take this section here and blow it up down here, where this is going to be the top and this is going to be the bottom. The penmanship is pretty bad. That's the bottom. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut the inside corner just enough to make sure that it's round, because when you put it on a lathe, it's not going to be perfectly round. There's always going to be one piece that's a little off or whatever. So you're going to turn on this surface here until you get it a round surface. Go in about 2 inches. Slice across the front to make sure that the top of it is flat, and then work on this down to the golden mean. And my golden mean, if this is the bottom and that's the top, you pick out the golden mean is going to be right about here. So you want this front surface to be, or the bottom surface rather, to be about 3/8 of an inch, 5/16 to 3/8. So you're going to come out here, you want it down to there, and you're going to wind up here. So what I want to do is I'm just going to start taking off like this until I get this surface down here. This is the right about 3/8 of an inch diameter. But I want to stop short of there because I don't know what the final surface is going to be yet. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to put a notch in there to hold my base. If we go over to the lathe now. Okay, now on the lathe you'll see that I've roughed in on the inside just enough to get it smooth. I find out that defines my inside diameter. On the outside I have beveled it off and I've sanded it down so that it's smooth. I've cut my notch in here, and this is my piece that fits inside, of which just fits in tight. And I'll show you how to make that in a bit. So that's how you do the bottom. Now I'm going to reverse it and work on the top. Okay, so this is what the opposite side, once you finish the bottom of it, you're going to turn it around and work on the top. So you're going to mount it in the lathe with the top showing out. Bear with me here, just a second. Now you have to remember you're working with rubber jaws, so it doesn't have the grip power that your metal jaws have. And I'm going to start with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, and I'm using a smaller bowl gouge when I'm way out further from the teeth, because you have a lot of leverage to pull this out of the jaws. So let me start this. Let me crank it up a bit higher than that. Now I usually stop it to make sure that it's still tight on the bottom. Make sure I didn't push it out at all, and it seems to be still hanging on. Okay, what I wanted to do is define the inside diameter of the top. So I've got a solid all the way around, it's cutting. So now now that I've got the worst of it done, I can go to the inside, but if I go all the way down to the bottom, I use a beefier tool just to give me more stability, and I work from the back and work forward, and I use the clock as a definition. Here's 12 o'clock, and I'm using the 10 o'clock position on the tool when I'm back in there, and I'm sliding along there to do the inside. You don't have to do too much on it now because you're going to work on the outside next. That's your next stage. So now we get our outside. Okay, I'm going to start turning the outside now. And we want to get this down to about 3/8 of an inch, 5/16 to 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so I'm down to about 3/8 of an inch, 5/16 thereabouts. Now you notice I haven't gone back too far. What I want to do on here is mark my golden mean. So if this is the top of the bowl and that's the bottom, I'm going to come up here and put a mark right about there. And I'm going to take it down till I get that round at that point. So now I've gotten that just about, let me do it a little bit more. A little bit shy on that one yet. So. Okay, I think I have it solid all the way around. Let me stop here. We're going to go back to the chart. Okay, this is the top and this was the bottom. We rounded off on the bottom. Now, first thing I did is I identified the maximum diameter because I want to get the maximum that I can out of the staves that I put together. Then I went and started rounding off the top, and I worked where the golden mean is, so I know what my maximum diameter is here. So now I have my maximum diameter, and I know I want the top to be about 3/8 of an inch thick, and I know I want the bottom to be about 3/8 of an inch thick. So now I make my bowl, my arches. This is going to go down down to this point here, which is a solid, and down here this is longer, so that's going to be a different arch, and that's going to go down there. So that's going to define the shape of the side of your bowl. Okay, on the bowl, you want to have the golden mean right about here, and you're going to round off to there and then round off the bottom part. What it does is it puts the golden mean a little bit higher from center, so it doesn't look like a wine barrel, and it's not centered. So it looks like a bowl as opposed to a barrel. So then we go back down to the drawing here, if you can see that. So once I've defined the outside edge, the outside shape that I like, then I want to mimic it on the inside. So I'm going to turn away on the inside like that, so that it stays at about 3/8 to 5/16 of an inch. And then on the top, I just round off the corners because the children have physical problems, and they're going to be banging their head on the bowl occasionally, so you don't want sharp corners. So you want to round off that edge. You're going to round off the bottom edge down here, and next thing we have to do is worry about this little lip on the bottom, and we have to make a piece that fits into there. So let me switch back over to the lathe, and we'll get working on that. What I have here is this is a homemade faceplate that I wanted, and I just need a flat faceplate for what I'm doing. And Tom Sloan showed us that you buy yourself a bolt, which is the same thread as your thing. So this is a 1 1/4 by 8. Unfortunately, the manufacturer, some of them put a relief on the back of their thread, and others you leave it full. So what I did is one side I made it just about flush, and the other side I have a setback. So I can put it in on like this. That'll give me a nice flat surface. Then I want to make the bottom that fits into the bottom of the bowl. So So what I've done is I've gone to the bandsaw and I cut out my circles, and I don't do it with a compass because I don't want that pinhole in the middle. So I usually take a piece of cardboard and cut it, and then I want to support it. And I'm going to turn my lathe speed way down for this. Okay. So I'm going to turn it on. And it's spinning, and it's obviously not centered. Now I have a tool that has a ball bearing in it. And I just take it, but when it's tight, I bring it up and let it touch. And then I just back it off a little bit. You hear it? It's hitting multiple times, and seeing that it's not perfectly round, it's going to tap a little bit on you. Then what I want to do is, plywood of this type is basically two veneers on the side of a filler in the middle. So I don't want to cut off. I always want to start from the outside and work towards the center. Towards the center of the plywood, that is. So I'm going to start on the outside and work in. Okay, I'm going to start with the gouge and work from the outside and work towards the middle of the plywood. Now that it's tight, I can turn the speed up a bit. Now what I usually do is I make one side a little bit smaller than the other, so that when I'm fitting it in the cutout that you have, when I cut this piece, I usually make it slightly tapered, so that when I go to fit it on here, it'll start fitting first before I get that top edge. For the top edge I want good and tight, so it gives me a little heads up as far as what's going to happen. So I put this back on again, so I can turn a little more off. Slow down my lathe. And I'm just listening to it. Speed it up and make another set of cuts. Here again, this is the bottom of it is just a little bit smaller than the top, so that will always start first. Until eventually you get it to the right size, and you put it on the right end, it should go right in and pop right tight. You have a good tight joint. That's how I do the bottoms. Okay, for the lid, I just glue up pieces, and the sections in the middle are just a little bit taller. And what I try to do is I try to match the grain. That is, when it goes down in a V-shaped or a cone shape going upward. Same thing on the sides, you try to match them so that you wind up with some pretty neat grain things. Now when I was doing pine, I was doing end grain, and what I would do is two pieces, I would match it together so that the lines would match up. And if you look at it, your eye is going to go right to that line that goes through there, even though it's two different boards. So it's just an eye catcher more than anything else. So once it's glued up, I cut it on a bandsaw round, and I put a all and get the center of it, and that makes everything work out a lot easier. So for the turning of this, you keep it at a medium speed. Just round that off, get the maximum diameter I can get. What I want to do is I want to put something where they can grip it, so I go down. I just narrowed it down so that there's a grip for the children with their dexterity. They're not great, so you want to have something that's going to fit in here. It's easy for them to grab. Turn the outside round, and then you put a lip on the top that's going to fit into the top of the bowl. That would be this lip here. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're finished, it doesn't fit tight. For most of our woodworking, we like it to be real tight, but here you want it to have a bit floppy so that they can get it and they can get it on. And it's more important for them just to get it to sit in position than it is to fit tight, because they will not be able to. They don't have the manual dexterity to work with that. And I drill a 3/4 inch hole in the top, go down to about as deep as I need it. And then I turn that till it's 810 thousandths, which is the size of the bead. And I put my bead inside there. I put some epoxy in and just press it in, wipe it all off. And that's how you get the bead in the top. The other thing I do is I usually turn the bottom, and just to give the kids something to do, I put a hollow in the bottom so they can bounce it on their finger or whatever, or spin it. That's just to make it cute for the kids. So that's how I make my bowls. Any questions?